Good morning, Lagos. Thanks a lot for staying tuned here on Smooth 98.1. I'm Ayo Mairo Ese, and with me.
And I'm Valentine Ohu.
And together we will be joined by Gbolahan, who is one of our analysts this morning. Morning, Gbolahan.
Morning, Ayo. Morning, Valentine.
Good morning.
Lagos.
Gbolahan is at Mr. Gquest on Twitter, and we have Devoe Okorie.
Good morning, Lagos. A cool revolution for every good thing.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, so Devoe is at Devoe Okorie on Twitter, and you can join us on Twitter at Smooth981FM. Use the hashtag FreshlyPressed981.
Our WhatsApp number is 0809-444-0981. That's 0809-444-0981. We're streaming live on YouTube. You can watch, subscribe, and leave a message.
Okay, so let's go on to our first story here, Devoe. EFCC freezes 9.9 billion naira bank accounts linked to ex-governor Akinwumi Ambode. So the immediate past governor of Lagos State. What's going on here, please?
Well, it's a story that we need to just break down into pieces. The Punch has said that some of the loyalists of the APC leader, that's Asiwaju, have dragged Ambode to the EFCC. Now that's one aspect.
Okay.
The other aspect is what was coming from the EFCC, whereby they reported that an investigation is ongoing into some accounts that have been frozen, which they got from an ex parte order from the court, whereby 3 accounts which had received heavy deposits from the Lagos state government. Now, what they've said is that these accounts transfers were made and it was operated by the former permanent secretary in the office of the chief of staff. That was his name is Adesanya, yes, and then some other signatories. Now it's a bit sketchy because this is coming from the EFCC. Now when they've frozen it on the order, on the request that it gives them time to investigate, okay? And the court did grant them this ex parte order. Now, my issue here is, and this is where I have an issue, this link to Ambode is not established. I mean, in terms of Lagos State accounts, yes, there are many signatories, there are many departments and agencies. Any of them could have come into it. They haven't established where the fraud has taken place, even though they said that money was dissipated. And what would want to ask is that, is it about anti-corruption or about political vendetta?
So aren't you curious to find out why all those transfers were made allegedly around September of 2018, very close to the elections?
Yeah, so my point is, then they should finalize investigation. You see, this is the trial by media that sometimes you tarnish people's names at the end of the day, because now you have said that you've linked a fraudulent case to Ambode, but you've not established it yet.
In this report, we have 3 bank accounts that have been identified as being, in this case, and we also have the fact that there were monies that were transferred from the Lagos State government account to the former governor's account. For any reason, would there be a reason why money should be transferred?
You're still hitting my point. How long does it take for them to have investigated and found out whether this money was fraudulently taken? Do you understand?
I just want to ask you, without fraud,
I'm sure there's due process in terms of how our finances in Lagos State.
There are cases where money can be transferred from the Lagos State account to the governor's account.
No, it was not. That's what I'm saying. It was not the governor's account.
So it was an account that was linked.
Yes, that was linked. And the link here, the only link that's established in this article is that it was operated by Adesanya, who was the what's his name? The permanent secretary to the office of the chief of staff. So that's what I'm saying. Any other Lagos State official could have been linked. He was not the only signatory. There were other signatories as stated in the article. So it's looking a bit like just like Punch had said, it's looking like more like a political vendetta rather than a move of anti-corruption to stem corruption within the Lagos State government. So I think we'll have to wait and see to the end of this investigation. However, we'd like to encourage those who are actually standing for anti-corruption to do the necessary job, do the needful, so that we can have less of media trials and more of objective positions on anti-corruption.
All right, thank you very much. If you'd like to read that story, it's in the Punch newspaper. I'll move on to the next one here, Gbolahan, and it's from the Guardian newspaper. So the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control has warned through its Director General, Professor Mojisola Adeyeye, during a one-day sensitization workshop organized by the Agency for Agro-Dealers in Kano. They've warned against the use of pesticides and other agrochemicals in homes for domestic purposes. Could you please take us through the story?
Yes, I think this is coming off the backdrop of the incidences that we've had in Nigeria where certain agrochemicals or pesticides have been used as agents or as a suicidal agent, and we've had a lot of cases where people have ingested particular chemicals that they're supposed not to have taken, and which ought not to have even been used as one of the domestic materials that should be used in the houses.
Yeah.
So that's coming off the back. This sensitization program is coming off the back of that, where the NAFDAC agency has embarked on this sensitization program of most of the chemical pesticides and agrochemical dealers in Kano, informing them of the issues surrounding the use of such products domestically, and also talking about ensuring that they regulate to ensure that these products are genuine products and the storage conditions of these products too. Well, the NAFDAC chair, DG has mentioned that we do have most of these products which are counterfeit products. They're also not produced and stored hygienically. So what they've just done is they've gone on a sensitization program trying to advise them to ensure that they store these products adequately and to make sure that they buy genuine products. The other aspect that has also been covered, of course, is the area of importation of most of these products.
Nigeria being a dumping ground.
Nigeria being a dumping ground, and then trying to look for ways or advising and educating these people to be able to differentiate between genuine products and the fake products. I mean, it's a good initiative to start off with. I mean, it's important that the regulatory bodies engage the users of such products and the sellers of these products. But the area that I have that is of concern to me is that the problem that we have isn't necessarily from the sellers of this product or the dealers of this product. The challenge that we have has got to do with the government regulatory agencies. How efficient are they at regulating a lot of these products? One thing I find out that we do a lot in Nigeria is that when we have a problem, rather than finding means of streamlining the channels at which these products are made accessible, we immediately ban these products. I can name a list of such products that have been banned.
Before you
We're
go
talking
to
about
that list,
codeine. Go on.
Just 1 second. I would like, so that we don't digress through to all those other medicinal products. But for this particular case of insecticides, I feel one of the major issues that affect it is where does it, first of all, there's a major question of what areas do the regulations cover? Are they only placed on companies that produce it or the suppliers, the distributors themselves, or does it get to the part where to fall in on the point where the products are purchased on a smaller scale, especially by those who sell things like stockfish in the market, beans in the market, because we know that some of these merchants use it to treat these consumable products, and these are the things that we buy off the market. We've seen videos, we've seen pictures showing some of these sellers using them to preserve their goods.
Exactly what I'm saying, and what I'm saying is it has to do with the channel of distribution, the distribution channels. When such products are being sold in a country, what you should normally have is that you should have registered, authorized dealers that sell these products, and when they also sell the products too, they are also supposed to know who they're selling to. So I mean, things like these are considered as poisons, and what you normally do have is that you have a register as well, so that will be kept. Sometimes it might even be sold by registered pharmacies only. So you just need to control the channel rather than actually putting a ban on it.
She hasn't called for a ban. This was a sensitization program.
Oh no, I'm talking. Yeah, absolutely. I understand what you're saying. This is a sensitization product, but the product is actually being banned.
Yes. All right, thank you very much, Gbolahan. We'll take some comments from WhatsApp. MI from Akwakan.
MI sent this one. It says interesting revelations by the anti-graft agency, and if it's anything to go by, the optics aren't pretty. The narrative, though, around the story seems to reflect the coverage around political scores. We await with bated breath. Thank you very much. It says Eku Itesiwaju. Interesting. Chidozia says, what does Devoe mean by media trial? The issue of fraud allegation has been taken to court and a valid order made after facts were presented. So how does this assertion of media trial come about? I think that's a personal question to you, Devoe.
Yeah, like I said, it has not been established. This is just an indicator.
Right.
An account has been frozen.
And it went to the media first.
Yes, went to the media first. We need to finish. So because you have linked it already to Ambode and said that he was tied to fraud. You need to prove it. Let's get the job done. So that at the end of the day we can say that okay, this happened in this case without tarnishing people's name. And if truly it was a fraudulent case, then let's get to that point. We're not there yet.
It can almost be related to jungle justice. So Emeka here says the regulatory body should go a step further to recommend the genuine brands and its users and authorized channels and dealers.
All right, thank you very much indeed. Let's move on to our next story. Devoe, I'll come to you for this. Revolution now, hashtag revolution now. Nigerian government seeks court order to detain Sowore for months. This report is in the Premium Times, and they reported that the State Security Services has asked a federal high court to grant it the permission to detain the publisher of Sahara Reporters, Omoyele Sowore, for 90 days. Can you please tell us the outcome, what's going on here, and the update on this story?
Yes, I think many people were aware of what happened on Monday, despite the fact that they picked him up. That was a DSS, the State Security Security Services. Yes, the protest still went on, and what was seen was that government responded with immense force, with armed security officers attacking and brutalizing protesters, including journalists as well who were covering the event. Now that's on one end. On the other end, the DSS had held him. They mentioned so, and usually, and people should hear this, the federal government or any security force cannot detain you or hold you more than 48 hours. Or else they have to charge you to court. They must release you after 48 hours. But in this case, Sowore was charged by the DSS for actions that were tantamount to acts of terrorism. Now, the court hearing this, that's the Federal High Court, did say that they would require up until Thursday, well, that's tomorrow, to be able to take a decision on this application, because the DSS added a video attachment of where statements were made by Sowore, which somehow many believe were not tactical in expressing his points, which the DSS is now writing on. Now, the truth is this, right? Let's get this straight. The federal government's position on this, yes, the optics here again are not looking to. We have issues with the word revolution and what it means. In some cases, it can go as a forceful change of government. In some other cases, it could be a concept. It could actually be a state of mind. Some would say, well, Sowore had stated his intentions and that there were no guns or arms or violence intended. So why was there such a heavy force applied to people who were protesting yesterday? And many people also write on the back of we are currently facing various other insecurities like kidnapping, banditry, the herdsmen, and yet the federal government hasn't applied the same swift motions. Now, the point I'm trying to bring out is this: citizens must also seize this opportunity because we have to get it right.
Yes.
You must learn your rights as regards dissent, meaning you have a right to disagree with the position of government, be it federal, be it state, be it local government. Your view must be heard. Now, you have channels like the National Assembly, and this is where many have to understand that some of the pressures and the grievance that you face, you need to take it out on your National Assembly members. They are your representatives. In some cases where they're not functioning, that's when people have to resort to the other forms of dissent. You also have the courts for those who have capacity. And yes, we know that our legal system has been riddled with a lot of challenges, so that's why many people are not using that channel. You also have elections, which is the constituted channel for us to change our leaders. And then lastly, you have protests. And yes, we have been seeing all forms of protest. A protest is not the same thing as a riot. When a protest goes all right, meaning you get violence, buildings get destroyed, it becomes a riot, and that is against the law. And that's why most times the police come out. But in this case, I didn't see in any video or for details from those who were protesting where they started destroying properties. So the force that was applied to them was disproportionate, even when they picked up rights. And we have to learn these rights.
Thank you, Devoe. Thank you very much. And I just to note that the DSS claimed that they need the 90-day window to enable them conclude investigations into acts of terrorism. They're accusing.
And if I may add quickly, when the notice was given, why didn't the DSS approach? If they felt, because he didn't change his position, he had sent the notice, I think, 2 weeks ahead of time. Why didn't the DSS approach him or invite him up front? Yes, and say, my friend, your position is wrong. This is against the law. Why did they have to wait? Thank
you, Devoe. All right, let me move on to Gbolahan for this comment. If you'd like to send your comments or reactions to this story, please send to WhatsApp 0809 444 0981 and also on Twitter as well.
We have messages here. C from Lekki says, I agree with Devoe. The trial by media stunt needs to stop. Clearly, the investigations have not been concluded. And he continues by saying, I wonder what material was placed before the court to justify the grant of the order. We have a long way to go in protecting human rights. Spedo says, they want to play politics with Ambode's name just because he refused to be their loyalist forever. Kolawole says, EFCC didn't go to the media. They went to court to obtain an order. The media picked it up from the court and reported the same. Where's the media trial here?
All right, different views, different thoughts, but keep them coming here on the show. Gbolahan reports Nigeria indebted to China than any other country, says New Telegraph's report. Chinese credit accounts for 80% of all bilateral loans to Nigeria, and this is according to data from the Debt Management Office. Can you please take us through the story?
Yes, this is. I mean, of course, we've been talking about debt management since 2015, since the inception of this current government now, and it's only just been released now that we're indebted to China, and to the tune of, we're talking about $2.5 billion is what we're indebted to China by, and we're talking about bilateral debt now, and bilateral trade debt is debt money borrowed from other countries, and we have 5 of such countries. China is one of them with $2.5 billion. We also have France, Japan, India, and Germany, and then Germany, which is the least debt, which is about $171 million. Of course, there's no telling that Nigeria needs money. We do know that the country needs money, and we do know that we're running a budget deficit annually of about 2 trillion naira every year, and we have an infrastructure deficit. And so when we're talking about infrastructure deficit, we are borrowing a lot of these money for infrastructure such as railroads, airports. Of course, I must remind you that a lot of all the major airports that are being constructed in Nigeria now is being funded by the Chinese Exim Bank. We're talking about the Abuja airport, the Port Harcourt airport, and also talking about the Lagos airport, which is currently being concluded. But the one thing that we have to be concerned about is the rising debt level. In 3 months, that's between December 2018 and March of 2019, Nigeria borrowed 100 billion naira to add to its debt profile. And since 2015 to date, we've actually borrowed about 12 trillion naira in debt. So we're talking about current debt level now being at over $80 billion. The issue is, how are we going to pay off this debt? How is the government planning to pay off the debt? It's okay to have an infrastructure that we're funding for that would pay for this debt itself. But the challenge that we have is that a lot of times we find out that a lot of these infrastructures are not exactly paying off for the debt. I'll give you an example. We have the airport. No, I'll just give you one example, quick example. It's the rail lines in Kaduna, Abuja. We're not generating enough revenue for it. Government is actually funding that as subsidy. And I must remind us as well that when we're talking about this debt, China, if you don't pay up, they can come for you. They've done that in Sri Lanka, where they have confiscate one of the assets that they funded.
Right.
So we must be very careful in ensuring that when we borrow, we should be in a better position to pay for it.
All right, thank you very much for that.
Quick messages on WhatsApp.
Devoe, you want the government to wait till arms are deployed before swinging into action? This is Ken Machuku from Sowore. Don't worry. We'll take it as a rhetorical question. All right, Femi from BI says so he sends a picture of some of the protests and says that Devoe is right. Our human right needs to be protected. Not a fan of Sowore, but wrong is wrong.
All right, let me go to. I'll take you through the story, especially with Gbolahan's help, or rather, let's go to Devoe now for this one from the Punch newspaper. Federal government is probing the Lekki strippers video. It's back in the news, unfortunately. Apparently, Tekno and the producer were arrested and taken to Banti. One statement I find really interesting, as made and credited to the Director General of the National Council for Arts and Culture, which is a part of the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture. Mr. Sowore, he said, the Lekki public show, and I'm quoting his statement, the Lekki public show negates the beauty of the Nigerian culture and way of life. It is unacceptable, Jezebelistic, and sins against the Nigerian culture and must be condemned, ridiculed, and rejected by Nigerians. With that statement in mind and other explanations to why this arrest was made, please take us through the story.
Yes, there are like three parts. One, we're also aware of the story that took place and the transparent bus, that was the ad bus, which had some ladies dancing with a popular known artist referred to as Tekno. Now, the had suspended the license of the ad firm. Okay, that was as much as we knew, but the Lagos State Police Command on Tuesday arrested Tekno, his producers, and some others who were connected to the incident. Now, it states that they were arrested for conveying half-naked girls in the Lekki area of Lagos. My question is, what is the crime? Secondly, the federal government also has swung into it through the the DG of the National Council of Arts and Culture under the Federal Ministry of Information, that's Chief Sowore, and he has spoken in words which I actually call unacceptable, because he's branded it as strange entertainment from the pit of hell. Like you mentioned, he's called it Jezebelistic, and only, well, Christians would understand what that means, and it should be ridiculed and that Nigeria would never be allowed to turn into a destination for sex, illegal and illegal drugs, tourism, and that all these cultures that the federal government will fight imported promoters who push imported cultural pastimes to blackmail our rich culture. You see, the question is this: even if he's speaking as a regulators do not speak in that. There are laws, okay, as to content and what is allowed and what is not allowed.
Do you get what he's trying to imply?
I don't get it, because he's infringing on laws. You don't get to personally brand what you saw, what you felt. If it was a case just like you have in TV, you have PB, how did they call, what are the ratings again? PG, that's parental guidance, 13, 15, 18, right. Rated R, and X.
So you'd rather he spoke technically?
Yes, he spoke as a regulator.
Not from
that is the appropriate and responsible position to take. Secondly, now now remember, that's the federal government coming in on this, and he was saying that this situation should be used as an example, okay, to deal with all forms of foreign imported content that come in to colonize the minds of the youth. That is not.
But we have a lot of tribes and cultures that dance naked as part of their cultural festivals.
You're making my point. Now, that's why I said, what is the crime? When the police said they've picked up Tekno and his producers, right, and they said for carrying half-naked girls, is that the crime? Now, I would state that I think maybe at some point we need to look into the law on public decency. Okay,
yes.
Now, that is one area that I believe we can fault him on. That they were half naked is not a crime. The point was that they were indecent exposure in public. They were dancing. some have even the argument over whether they were strippers or not. No, you can dance wearing what you like. So I think we need to get these laws right. The federal government or the state government should not be taking a personal stance on it. But when you come out from a legal point of view, that's when you are right on point. And
Thank you, Devoe.
Okay.
From the Vanguard newspaper, let's go to the next story. Buhari to swear in new ministers. Apparently, the 43 ministers designates have been announced to be sworn in on August 21. President Muhammadu Buhari said through a statement by his permanent secretary, Cabinet Affairs, said this is a compulsory event to attend for strictly by invitation and is going to be held at the Federal Executive Council chamber at the presidential villa. Your thoughts on this, Gbolahan?
Well, I mean, there's really nothing to it other than just an announcement of the meetings, the appointment of the cabinet ministers on August 21st, just as you mentioned, and they will be sworn in and given their. They would also be given their portfolios to handle on the 21st of August. So we'll get to find out then. And of course, just before they do that, they are going to have a retreat, of which that retreat is a building. It's just to build a strong platform and synergy, and to also introduce them into governance, and also introduce them to what the government has done from 2015 to date. So they're going to be talking about the ERGP, which is the Economic Recovery Growth Plan, and the successes that the government has made so far. So it's an introduction into the government. Let's hope that they're going to be able to deliver when they come into office.
Thank you, Gbolahan. In 45 seconds, please, let's look through the story from Daily Times. Federal government to set up committee on revenue sharing formula, says the Revenue Mobilization Allocation and Fiscal Commission. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, this is an interesting topic. The reason why it's interesting is that, of course, a lot of states has been complaining about not getting enough funds from the federal, and we know the issues that we're facing with when it comes to salaries and payment of salaries by most of these states. So right now at the moment, they're currently talking about reviewing that sharing formula, which currently stands at 52% goes to the federal, 27% goes to the states, and the local governments get 20%. I must also remind us that when we're talking about the local government getting 20%, we know the challenges that the local government do have. They don't exactly get those funds because the money usually go to the states first, and the states now distribute. But there's been
it doesn't
a lot
come
of
to them. I guess what you're trying to say. I mean, it doesn't come to them directly. Not like they don't get a fund.
Oh yeah, it doesn't come to them directly. Indirectly, absolutely.
So somehow
so
the power
exactly. But you know, there's been a lot of clamor for devolution of the power so that the local government can get the funds directly, and so that people can hold the local government accountable. But the issue that I just have is we're still back to the same sharing formula. It's only a matter of time when the states now get a lot more. Many years down the line, they would probably still end up coming back to say that they need more. So we should be looking at diversification and the states generating the revenues themselves rather than getting money from the states. From the federal.
Times, yes, thank you. From Premium Times.
Thank you.
Let's quickly dive into the story. Devoe, only 1 in 3 Nigerian babies are exclusively breastfed, according to this report. They said we know it's very important for the first 6 months of a baby's life. They require such attention and nutrients. Your thoughts on this story?
Yes, well, they are saying 1 in 3. Now that's like about 27% from their studies. Now they were pushing, the federal government stating that breastfeeding is a right of every newborn within the country, and they're encouraging this. One major reason, the first milk that comes from a mother contains colostrum. Colostrum is highly nutritious, and then it contains antibodies that help against disease immunization, which later on help fight the child's stability. Yes. Now, secondly, the babies are meant to be breastfed for at least 6 months. But what they've seen, the challenge is that many of them begin to introduce water before 6 months.
What do you see as some of the major factors that are making this happen, and stopping mothers from breastfeeding their children adequately?
Well, they didn't really go into that within the article, but we do know that most times stress, sometimes the ability to take care of that child,
not having to take on more jobs,
yes, or even themselves having to eat and to be able to produce sufficiently across time. Now, the truth is, you have to hear this from the women themselves. It's always a challenge. Many of them, even though they have all these baby foods and all these, it's almost like what it is not
artificial.
breast milk. Breast milk is a gift from God that comes to women for the children. So the best we can do, join the federal government in this campaign to encourage mothers to also do that, encourage the families to also encourage.
Provide the right systems to ensure that mothers who with newborn babies at the adequate time, maybe social support.
Yes, and support.
I'm glad that it's the men. I mean, it's you, Devoe, that's taking this story because I think also the men have a huge role to play in this as well.
Yes.
If fathers will support the women more in terms of managing work and helping, like managing the stress aspect, it would go a long way. So I love the fact that more men are coming out to speak about it.
And to add to that, one would hope that men get paternity leave as well.
And not also drag the milk portions from the babies.
Really, please, excuse me. Trevor Noah's lapel pin says another thing to be worried about with our debt levels is devaluation. We borrowed in dollars. If the dollar goes up to 385 or higher, our debt becomes more expensive. And messages
from YouTube.
On YouTube.
All right, so Jay Eziali says, what is wrong with Nigeria? Why should Tekno be arrested? He did not commit any crime and the ad agency only rented out the truck. They should not be getting all this stress from the government.
All right.
Thank you all for your comments this morning. Thanks to our analysts, Gbolahan at Mr. G Quest on Twitter and Devoe at Devoe Okorie. Follow us at Smooth 981 FM and see you at 8:15 for the Locker Room 981. Good morning.
This Tekno story.
Man, guys,
people have to take
are taking so long.
But I think it's appropriate. What do you mean? Who's taking long? This guy is taking long, but we need to be timing
said it's
it.
appropriate.
Devoe!
I think it's appropriate. The arrest is appropriate.
It's not appropriate.
It is appropriate. Let me tell you why it's appropriate. If you wait.
God.
If you want to do not prostitution, sorry.
Why are you calling them prostitutes?
I made a mistake. What I'm saying is strip joints.
They were not stripping.
They were putting money on their bodies, stripping.
They were stripping. They were
slapping their
They were
buttocks.
pole dancing. They were pole dancing.
Yeah,
Not stripping, but they were pole dancing.
There was no pole dancing. Watch it now.
They were pole dancers.
They were pole
My
dancers.
God, why are you doing this? It is a video. Watch it.
Hold on. I have the video on my phone. They were pole dancers.
Yeah.